Well, it was in my childhood days. Oh Lord, many long years ago.
I was in the military when a lot of things happened. See, when I went in the military, and I believe, I'm not for sure, when Roosevelt was running for office, I believe it was Roosevelt, we all had to go below deck because we couldn't vote. All the boys in the South. All the boys up north, they stayed up and voted. But all the boys from the South had to go below, give them room and go below deck. But we had one thing on them. Now, the first ship I went on, back then I've been thinking, if that was a lady, we transported nurses. But we had officers, and then everything, the nurses always was on the top deck, where you couldn't go nowhere close to the nurses. And that was, they had officers, then boatswains, and then a regular first class, watching those, stairways and everything. And before I left the base, the naval base out there, everybody living in the same barracks. Yeah, my room, yeah, your room, there, your room.
What happened during that time? Why was there a sudden change? What brought about the change?
Well, it's back then, they hadn't thought that it's up to the person to take care of themselves. The old nurses were grown women and everything, but evidently they didn't, it was the law that you couldn't touch them, anything like that. But since I went to the naval base in 1952, it was still that way. But before I left, there was in the barracks was a room here, room there, a man, woman, everybody living together. Not together, but it's up to you. It's up to you to take care of yourself.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Now, because I had a little hard time too at the base.
Yeah.
Out there, because when I was at the base in the 1950s, we couldn't eat in the dining room. We could go through, get our meals, but we had to go out and plenty of time we'd sit under the trees, with a raincoat or something, or else you went way down and found your shed. See, but things changed a lot since then, Yeah, but I went through the hard.
How did that experience shape your life?
Well,
what kind of man did it make you as a result of that?
Half mad, half
glad.
Yeah, well,
how did it?
That was a back then. You didn't look at that was life. That was the law, and regardless of what happened, I've always tried to follow the law. Yeah.
Okay.
Now, of course, I've always managed to stay out of jail.
Okay.
Now,
that's a good thing.
I'm gonna put this little bit in. When we was coming up in Bluntstown, your family didn't raise you. The community raised you. Okay. Now, that was about 14 of us who we shot pool, and we would get our little quarter of wine, 3 muscatel wine for a quarter, and we'd get a 10-cent pack of Domino cigarettes, and we would go about 2 miles in the river swamp. We would sit on a log, cuss, drink our wine, and smoke our cigarettes. But we'd leave everything right there on that log, because any grown person found out They didn't go tell your parents or call the law. They whooped you right then. And we come up like that, and we had some downfalls for that too. Most of the people back then, if you had a girlfriend, that ain't like it is now. If you saw a girl you liked, you didn't mess with her, you go talk to the daddy first.
What did you find when you actually moved your family here?
Well,
what kind of housing, what kind of streets, what kind of roads? Can
well,
you kind of describe?
I lived in the project on Joe Lewis Lane for 2 years.
Okay.
In 1954.
Okay.
Kenny, I brought 4 of my children with me from Bluntstown. And that was Charles, Jerry, Kenny, and Grayson.
Okay.
And all the rest were born, my daughter, my oldest daughter, and one more was born here. Then my wife she had 3 sets of twins in a row. I knew Little Richard. You ever heard of him?
Oh yes, I'm familiar
Well,
with Little Richard.
Little Richard, I was driving truck in the bus station there on US 41. And Little Richard used to wash dishes in the bus station.
The musician.
Yeah,
Little
and that's the way
Richard?
we eat. We had to eat in there.
Okay.
But back then, gospel was a lot more than rap or anything else. People would go miles and miles for gospel. Well, Little Richard had a choir. He was a gospel singer before he was and later on his daddy found out that he was gay. He put him out of the house. That's when Little Richard started his band. And the first evening gown he wore, we was in Havana, Florida. And me and my wife and all, we used to go, that was a big, right in the middle of the woods was this big club. It was called Whispering Pine. And we went in, and he always had a little rouge and his hair done and stuff. But this time, he had on a long white evening gown and had his band there. And that's the first time I saw him with an evening gown on. And back then, all the famous guys like B.B. King and all of them they used to come right over there to Orange Blossom.